What does it mean to be the last of the independents? For the character of today's film, it meant doing whatever it took to survive. For the film's director, Don Siegel, it was a mantra for his career, an incredibly long and storied career that began in the late 1940s, working as a montage editor, creating those expositional spinning newspapers and the like, who ended up helming some of the greatest crime and action films of the 1960s and 70s. Hot off his masterpiece Dirty Harry 2 years prior, Siegel returns with a somewhat different type of movie. Not a renegade cop, but a blue-collar working man, pushed to the edge, Charley Varrick, former aerial stunt pilot turned crop duster turned bank robber, played by an unlikely star, Walter Matthau, known primarily for his comedy roles and persona as a likable curmudgeon.
You don't play any part by choice. It's what the particular segment of society which is giving out the jobs see you as. Most people saw me as a rather aggressive, domineering, insensitive kind of fellow.
Charley Varrick was based on a book called The Looters by John Reese, which aspires to be a sort of minute-by-minute account of the bank robbery and all the events that transpire thereafter. The police, the bankers, the assassin, the robbers, they're all covered in detail. All of these elements and many plot beats remain intact in Siegel's film. The biggest difference is the elevation of Charley Varrick to the lead. Siegel identified that Varrick was far too interesting a character to be relegated to the sidelines, which gives us an interesting window into the director's thought process, what he finds interesting and who he relates to. This is a great movie and a seminal film in Siegel's career. Let's get started.
Varrick? You've seen Charley Varrick?
You're an interesting man, Mr. Varrick. Last of the independents.
Oh my God. You want to die for somebody else's money?
Charley Varrick begins in sleepy Tres Cruces, New Mexico. Siegel spends a good chunk of time illustrating the leisurely, hardscrabble southwestern American small town before jolting us out of our lethargy.
That's a perfectly good
Why show all this, the way that people live? Simply to lull us into a false sense of security? For the purposes of atmosphere? Or to make a political point? 5 years before Jimmy Carter would deliver his famous malaise speech, this movie seems to predict the ambient economic decline many rural communities and working people would begin to feel in the 1970s, Charley Varrick included. A bright yellow Lincoln Continental is illegally parked outside the bank, drawing the attention of the police. Inside, Varrick is disguised as an old man with a broken foot, Nadine, his wife, posing as his caretaker daughter. The police think nothing of it. Surely this doddering old-timer and his ditzy daughter pose no real threat to the bank, or to the system as a whole. A cursory glance at the plates, though, and the police realize the car is hot. But not before Varrick and his three compatriots have caused enough pandemonium in the humble bank to make their getaway with the cash. It doesn't go smoothly, however. One of the bank robbers is killed, while Nadine and a police officer exchange bullets. All hell breaks loose in our once peaceful community as Varrick and company speed off. Varrick tears off his costume, mustache, and hairpiece, revealing the familiar grizzled face and jowls of Walter Matthau. And for audience members used to seeing Matthau as a jovial comedy figure, seeing him discard the slightly humorous old man persona is a fairly definitive statement that Matthau is serious this time, tossing away the comedy. Varrick and Sullivan, his partner, continue to perform the steps of their getaway, transferring the loot over to a hidden cargo van in the forest and preparing to torch the yellow Lincoln while Nadine sits motionless in agony. Ultimately, Nadine must also go up in flames if the plane is to go off. Charley and Sullivan ease back into their public-facing identities as down-and-out crop dusters, the last of the independents, and are able to evade police capture once their timed explosives go off.
Damn.
This officer, too, would never suspect these humble day laborers of pulling off a robbery. The duo returns to Charley's humble trailer and enjoy a celebratory drink. Charley stops to admire an old photograph of him and Nadine in their heyday, a vision in which they were able to use their talents of flying and driving respectively to excite and entertain rather than to dust crops or rob banks. They look happy, too, contented and proud. We get a shot later in the film of Charley at his office/barn headquarters. There's an old sign advertising his and Nadine's high-flying act, which is similar to Charley's business logo. It's made with pride, an announcement of ownership and a celebration of having a small stake in the world that is identifiably yours. We can tell that this dream has fallen into disrepair, along with the equipment. Varrick is jolted out of his melancholy mood once Sullivan starts digging through the cash, and he senses that something is wrong.
Fantastic! We lucked out!
More like crapped out. It's 10 to 1. This stuff belongs to the mafia. This is gambling money, skimmed off the top. Whore money, dope money.
What's the difference?
The difference is that the mafia kills you. No trial, no judge. They never stop looking for you, not till you're dead. I'd rather have 10 FBI's after me.
So it turns out the bank is a front for the mob, which is shocking considering the unassuming working women and elderly guard staffing the tiny bank appear as ordinary people, like regular folks you might know in your real life, people from the town we saw earlier. These people thought they were simply working for a small-town bank, and they are. It's just one being co-opted by the mafia in coordination from the highest level of bank management. If the criminal conspiracy reaches this far, to dusty Tres Cruces, who can't the systemic corruption touch? As much as Charley Varrick is a hard-nosed crime film, it's also a bit of a conspiratorial movie, as we see demonstrated over and over. Criminal conspiracies pervade the film, corrupting seemingly traditional American facades. Small businesses like this Chinese restaurant are really hubs for organized racketeering. Massage parlors are happy to collaborate with and accommodate hired killers. This well-furnished and professional-looking office building in the big city is actually housing a cabal of crooks. The system of corruption is even able to ensnare Southern good old boys like Joe Don Baker's Molly, a ruthless bastard, enlisted to find the money and kill the bank robbers. It's strange because someone like Molly, with his cowboy hat and folksy Southern drawl, would be right at home as a working man in Tres Cruces, but he's been corrupted and enlisted into the ranks of the system. When he needs a car, the bank provides one, but he has to make sure it looks legitimate on paper. So what appears like stealing or theft
I'm repossessing the vehicle, Mr. Percy.
You pink-ass punk, you...
is actually simple bank repossession. The sinister banker, played by reliable villain and Siegel regular John Vernon, sets all this in motion. Despite his luxury office and nice suit, he still answers to a higher power, the mob.
Inside job.
That's the way the diseased minds work. A bank gets it, bang, they look for a double cross.
Why couldn't it be just a coincidence?
Because they don't believe in coincidence.
And he makes quick work of the police, who are rendered as largely ineffectual in this film, barred by larger forces from bringing the murdering bank robbers to justice, and frustrated by their impotence. In the book, the police play a much larger role, and a heroic one in that. In the film, they're sidelined wisely by Siegel to make room for Charley Varrick. The book is much more of an ensemble. Halfway through the book, Charley Varrick is killed. He's stabbed multiple times by Molly, who then drops a bowling ball on his head. I think Reese was a lot more interested in exploring the depravity of the criminal mind and talking about the futility of a dog-eat-dog mentality. Whereas Siegel's film is much more class-conscious and interested in elevating the underdog against the system. Siegel was smart to do this, identifying the character's rage against the machine as the truly interesting narrative. He also softens Varrick up a bit, as in the book he's portrayed as a rather vile bastard, who beats Nadine, drinks heavily, and bullies Sullivan relentlessly. In the film, Varrick is clever, forward-thinking, and rather charming. In order to turn the tables on the mafia and the bank, he ultimately embraces the conspiracists and cabals in his own midst. Instead of a restaurant and a bank, Varrick has a gun shop owner willing to sell him illegal explosives, and a family photographer who doubles as a document forger and makes him a fake passport. Varrick is even able to pull off a little mini-conspiracy of his own, replacing his dental records at the local office in order to pull off his fake death. The movie has a lot of populist energy, latent during the 1970s, where 4 years prior to the release of this movie, Nixon severed the dollar's convertibility to gold. Shrinking the value of the dollar kicked off a rash of inflation. Investment dollars moved into less risky spaces like commodities, which rose the value of farmland out of the reach of many regional family farmers, causing rampant consolidation. There's an argument about whether or not the gold window was closed because the US had been spending beyond their means to pay for the Vietnam War and printed more money than they had in gold reserves. Fearing foreign dollar holders would call them on this, the gold standard was officially abolished. It's interesting then that Sullivan, Varrick's wild partner, even makes a comment about his Vietnam service.
Careful now, this is black powder.
No sweat, I've blown up a lot of goops with this crap and I'm still here.
Terrific.
Yeah.
We can assume that Sullivan, by his erratic behavior and wild-eyed stare, is a traumatized veteran, returning home with dangerous skills and no outlet to exercise them other than in crime. In that way, Varrick and Sullivan are both victims of a larger economic and military system. Sullivan isn't able to keep his head and his wits about him.
I've been waiting all my life to make a score like this. And now that it's here, I ain't waiting no more. I mean, I'm gonna wail. And I'm talking about chicks, cars, clothes.
Unlike Charlie, he sees the money as a big break and not the curse it truly is, and it leads to his demise. The film was scripted by Dean Reisner, whose only available online picture is his baby photo. Anyway, he collaborated with Siegel on the Clint Eastwood films Dirty Harry and Coogan's Bluff, both movies featuring a maverick protagonist who adopt the tactics of their enemies to win the day. And in both Coogan's Bluff and Charley Varrick, the infiltrating hero even sleeps with the antagonist's woman, the realest victory of them all. In the book, Varrick, in addition to being unpleasant, is also surrounded by unpleasantness. It's hinted at that Nadine is a heroin addict and overweight. Varrick isn't even a crop duster. He's just a 2-bit career criminal who scored big. Siegel knew that this character had to be more sympathetic, a lowly man cut down at every turn by technology, politics, and the expanding global economy. But Varrick stays smart. He doesn't despair. He takes action, and he takes a risk. Siegel originally wanted Eastwood for the role, who turned it down because he felt the lead had no redeeming qualities. That's for the better because Matthau owns the part. He's not an action hero. He's kind of frumpy and grumpy and has a voice from another world, another time. Even though Matthau hated the movie, claiming he didn't understand it, it's one of his best roles and one of Siegel's best films. Hi guys, thanks so much for tuning back into Film Journal. I really appreciate it when you like and subscribe and comment on the videos. The channel's growing fast and it's really exciting. And also check out Don Siegel's Charley Varrick. It's an excellent movie and I watch it probably once a year. It's one of my favorites. I have a lot of new things coming down the pike. Next Wednesday, I'll be doing another live stream with Cinecrisis about 1970s TV adaptions of superhero comic books, which should be really fun. Incredible Hulk, Wonder Woman, Captain America, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man. I've had to watch a lot of interesting content for that one, so I hope you enjoy. I'll also be appearing on the Drunk on Movies podcast with Anthony Sisco and Detective Wolfman, talking about The Swimmer with Burt Lancaster from 1968. A really great movie. I think you guys are really going to enjoy that conversation, and I'm looking forward to it. In the next month or so, I will be on the Rare Candy podcast, talking about the film adaptation and book of Burnt Offerings, starring Oliver Reed. That should be really exciting. So stick around, guys. I have a lot of new content coming down the pike. Really appreciate you sticking with me. Talk to you soon.